The Maidens by Michaelides.
Chapter 3. Henry arrived later than the others. He was flushed and out of breath, and he seemed a little unsteady on his feet. Mariana wondered if he was high. She wouldn't have been surprised. She suspected Henry was abusing his medication, but being his therapist, not his medical doctor, there was little she could do about that. Henry Booth was only 35 years old, but he looked older. His reddish hair was speckled with grey, and his face was covered with creases, like the crumpled shirt he wore. He also wore a perpetual frown, and gave the impression of being permanently tense, like a coiled spring. He reminded Mariana of a boxer or a fighter, preparing to give or receive the next blow. Henry grunted an apology for being late. Then he sat down, clutching a paper coffee cup. And the coffee cup was the problem. Liz spoke up immediately. Liz was in her mid-70s, a retired schoolteacher, a prim stickler for things being done properly, as she put in. Mariana experienced her as rather trying, even irritating. And she had guessed what Liz was about to say. "That's not allowed," Liz said, pointing a finger, quivering with indignation, at Henry's coffee cup. "We're not allowed to bring in anything from outside. We all know that." Henry grunted. "Why not?" "Because it's the rules, Henry." "Fuck off, Liz." "What?" "Mariana, did you hear what he just said to me?" Liz promptly burst into tears, and the things degenerated from there, ending in yet another heated confrontation between Henry and the other members of the group, all united in fury against him. Mariana was watching closely, keeping a protective eye on Henry to see how he was taking this. For all of his bravado, he was a highly vulnerable individual. As a child, Henry had suffered horrific physical and sexual abuse at the hands of his father before he was taken into care and shunted around a series of foster homes. And yet, despite all this trauma, Henry was a remarkably intelligent person, and it had seemed for a while as if his intelligence might be enough to save him. At 18, he got a place at university to study physics, but he only lasted a few weeks before his past caught up with him. He had a massive breakdown and never fully recovered. There followed a sad history of self-harm, drug addiction, and recurring breakdowns, landing him in and out of the hospital, until his psychiatrist referred him to Mariana. Mariana had a soft spot for Henry, probably because he had had such rotten luck. But even so, she was unsure about admitting him into the group. It wasn't just that he was significantly more unwell than the other members. Seriously ill patients could be held and healed very effectively by groups, but they could also disrupt them to the point of disintegration. As soon as any group establishes itself, it always arouses envy and attack, and not just from forces on the outside, those excluded from the group, but also from dark and dangerous forces within the group itself. And ever since he had joined them a few months ago, Henry had been a constant source of conflict. He brought it with him. There was a latent aggression in him, a bubbling anger that was often difficult to contain. But Mariana didn't give up easily. As long as she was able to maintain control of the group, she felt determined to work with him. She believed in the group, in these 8 individuals sitting in a circle. She believed in the circle and its power to heal. In her more fanciful moments, Mariana could be quite mystical about the power of circles. The circle in the sun, the moon, or the earth, the planet spinning through the heavens, the circle in a wheel, the dome of a church, or a wedding ring. Plato said the soul was a circle, which made sense to Mariana. Life was a circle too, wasn't it? From birth to death. And when group therapy was working well, a kind of miracle would occur within this circle, the birth of a separate entity, a group spirit, a group mind, a big mind it was often called, more than the sum of its parts, more intelligent than the therapist or the individual members. It was wise, healing, and powerfully containing. Mariana had seen its power firsthand many times. In her front room, over the years, Many ghosts had been conjured up in the circle and laid to rest. Today, it was Liz's turn to be spooked. She just couldn't let go of the coffee cup. It brought up so much anger and resentment in her. The fact Henry thought the rules didn't apply to him, that he could break them with such disdain. Then Liz suddenly realized how much Henry reminded her of her older brother, who had been so entitled and such a bully. All Liz's repressed anger towards her brother started surfacing, which was good. Mariana thought it needed to surface, provided Henry could stand being used as a psychological punch bag, which of course he didn't. Henry leapt up suddenly, letting out an anguished cry. He flung his coffee cup onto the floor. It split open in the center of the circle, and a growing pool of black coffee spread out onto the floorboards. The other members of the group were immediately vocal and somewhat hysterical in their outrage. Liz burst into tears again, and Henry tried to leave, but Mariana persuaded him to stay and talk through what had happened. "It's just a fucking coffee cup. What's the big deal?" Henry said, sounding like an indignant child. "It's not about the coffee cup," said Mariana. "It's about boundaries, the boundaries of this group, the rules we abide by here. We have spoken about this before. We can't take part in therapy if we feel unsafe. Boundaries make us feel safe. Boundaries are what therapy is about." Henry looked at her blankly. Mariana knew he didn't understand. Boundaries, by definition, are the first thing to go when a child is abused. All Henry's boundaries had been torn to shreds when he was just a little boy. Consequently, he didn't understand the concept, nor did he know when he was making someone uncomfortable, as he usually was, by invading their personal or psychological space. He would stand too near when he spoke to you and exhibited a level of neediness Mariana had never experienced in a patient before. Nothing was enough. He would have moved in with her if she had let him. It was up to her to maintain the boundary between them, to define the parameters of the relationship in a healthy way. That was her job as his therapist. But Henry was always pushing at her, needling at her, trying to get under her skin, and in ways she was finding increasingly hard to handle.